Hi.
Welcome. So for those of you guys who are tuning in, this is the pregnancy. I had it up here. Was looking for it. Birthing baby and becoming mommy with ease. With ease, yes, with ease. A couple of things we don't think go together is ease and birthing and babying and mommying. So we are here tonight with this fabulous panel of women all together to bring to you some possible new options, things you maybe not have thought of in your past, things that might be a different way of looking at everything that's showing up with being mom, being pregnant, looking at the birth possibilities that lie ahead, and then also with what lies after. And so I'm super excited. Other than the sweat that I have going on, I'm super hot. It's not just excitement. The sun was beating on me a second ago, which I absolutely love. But so my name's Sadie Lake, and I am part of this fabulous group of women. We're all involved with Access Consciousness in some way or another. Some of us are facilitators. Are we all facilitators? Most of us not. So we're just people who love Access Consciousness, and we all use the tools in our own lives and have used the tools in our own lives, whether that be with our own pregnancies, births, babies, parenting, and or like in Kara's case, with actually facilitating moms who are becoming moms in their birth space. And so we have quite a smorgasbord of ladies here who have all kinds of different experiences, and we'd love to chat with you guys about what we've used, what worked, and actually not just about like, hey, we know it all, but from a space of there are different ways of looking at what's showing up in your world. And if you are willing to actually step outside of the conclusions you have about that it has to be hard, it has to be painful, it has to suck, it has to drain your energy, all that stuff we buy into, what else would be possible, and how could it be different, and could it actually be fun? Not just fun from the I love holding my newborn baby, but even fun when it sucks, and could you have some humor and laugh, and what else is possible with all of those subjects. So I'm going to pass the torch off to somebody else who wants to go next. Cara, do you want to go next?
Actually, let's go to some of the women who have had babies.
Okay, Teresa, you're on my. I'm looking on my row here. You guys, I'm trying to go in a row. So, Teresa just had a baby. So, do you want to tell us about how things went?
I do. I'm just going to do something here. I'm mute. So, if someone wants to
I hear the baby.
Yeah. So we have the tools in action literally right now. You're doing a Google Hangout, and you're nursing, and you're like, I'm Superwoman. I can do it all. Absolutely. And the baby's like trying to eat the headphones. I love it. So it's true. Exactly how it is, isn't it?
And the tools help you stay calm during moments like that.
Yeah. Kim, do you want to share your story about your babies and your pregnancy and all that kind of stuff? Can you talk to everybody about what you shared with us earlier in the day on that on the group?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Kim Cooper. I have twin boys who are 3 months old and another 8-year-old son. And when I had my 8-year-old, I wasn't familiar with Access, and so I really used the tools with my twins. In fact, I had somebody run my bars, which are I don't know how many newbies we have on the call or how many people are familiar with Access, but the bars are basically like 32 points on the head that you touch lightly, and they help you release any kind of limitations or judgments that you're holding on to. And they just really help everything happen with ease. So I had a friend of mine running my bars during my entire labor, which was about 3 hours, and which I knew it would be really quick. And then, and I don't even think this is the story I told you guys, but I'm going to tell you this one anyway.
I want to hear it,
so,
yeah.
So because... Oh, this was part of the story I told you. So I had planned to have this like as natural as possible birth with the midwives, and I'm 43 and I had preeclampsia, so they bumped me up to the high-risk doctors. And
you haven't even mentioned that it was twins, right?
Yeah, it's twins. So, and then they were going to make me deliver in the ER, in the emergency room, or the operating room, not the ER, the operating room, because I was at higher risk with the preeclampsia and the twins. And so, my natural midwife hippie birth went to about as clinical and, medically invasive as you could get, but the tools really helped me stay calm throughout the whole thing. to the point where when I was getting ready to deliver, they told me that I was going to laugh the baby out, and they weren't ready for me yet because everything had happened so much quicker than I expected it to, and we were just giggling while we were in the operating room, and they said, if you keep laughing like that, you're going to laugh that baby out. So I can't think of a better anything better to say about the tools than that.
So Kim, you've got an echo. Do you want to try popping your headphones out and see if you can see if it works better?
Maybe it was me. Is that better?
Mine is echoing too, actually.
Sorry.
We all are.
We all are. We just like to hear ourselves so much that.
It was totally. Well, I was telling you too.
Does anybody have this up on a separate source, like on an iPad and a computer, or on a phone and a computer?
I'm actually not hearing any.
I'm not now.
Echoing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool.
Maybe it's
Wah, 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 wah.
That was really hard to tell my because it's like.
Yeah, Cara, do you still not hear it, or do you hear it now?
Nope.
I still hear.
I don't hear any echo. Wow, it's total echo for me too. But
Me too.
Cara, maybe.
Oh, we lose.
You want me to talk? Do you guys not hear me echoing?
No, you're not echoing.
How does it get? Could it be that I've cleared entities over here?
There you go.
Anyway. Yeah, I mean, it's like, where do you start with this? I personally have never had children this lifetime, and I've been a doula for, 15, 16 years. I was a doula for 12 years before I found the Access tools, and they created such an astonishing difference working with my clients. It was really when I learned the bars, I had this moment, very first time I ever ran bars, because I actually went to a class before I'd ever had my bars run. I didn't know what the hell to expect. I was like, I don't know what this is. I'm going to go do it. And I had this moment of like, oh my God, if this can do for women in birth what I think it could do, how freaking exciting. And it's really what ended up showing up. Since knowing the bars, and I work with my clients, I run their bars before they go into labor. Sometimes I'll run their bars during labor, and there's other tools that are amazing. Just being in the question, who does this belong to, is huge, because women are so aware of what's going on in their environment. And also me as a doula, like, I started realizing how aware I was of everything that was going on in their environment and all the things that I was doing with that weren't actually a contribution to the birth, and like being able to switch out of that gear and actually be a space and contribution labor. But even just running their bars, like, I have had experiences where I've gone to the hospital with my clients and nobody believes they're in labor, and I'm like, can you please put this woman in a room? She's going to have this baby in, and they're like, oh yeah, but she can't be far along, look at her. And I'm like, okay, but, and then it's like they take her in the triage and they come back and their eyeballs are this big, like, oh my God, she's crowning. It's like, I told you. Like,
Karen, that's exactly what happened to me. That's exactly what happened to me.
I know, and that has happened like more times than not since I've been using the Access tools. So there is a lot more possible than where so many people think they have, so many women think they have to function with birth here. And I know it's just scratching the surface. It's so exciting for me that there's more people that are familiar with Access that are actually like wanting to talk about this subject with these tools, because there's so much available. So how does it get better?
Yeah. So one of the things for those of you guys who are listening who may have never actually even heard of Access, or maybe you've heard of it but you don't know what Access is or what we're referring to when we're talking about Access. Access is a pretty big, broad set of tools that you can use to change anything in your life. And when we're talking about using the tools of Access, we're talking about taking the tidbits here and there that actually could create something different in the moment and actually using the tools. It's kind of like if you were to, you're going on a job site and you need a hammer and you need a screwdriver, you actually have those in your box when you're ready to go on that site and you use them for the tasks that they're required for. And this is the way we are talking about using those kinds of tools kind of energetically and mentally and spiritually and emotionally when we're in these environments. So an example might be, say like Kim was saying, she had preeclampsia. So maybe you look at that and you might be able to say, oh gosh, and get real down on yourself. I have this condition and they told me I have to do this and they told me I have to do that, and this is what's going to happen. And an Access tool, and that might be like, is that actually true for me? And what do I actually know that's beyond this? And if I wasn't just buying everything everyone else told me, what would I know is true for me? That's one tool. Or how does it get even better than this is another tool. It's just questions that you can use in your life to actually open up your awareness to what else is possible besides going into the conclusion that you might have received directed at you, which is what a lot of our doctors do, unfortunately. And in many cases, even our midwives. I'm not going to, it's not to say that if you've chosen to go the natural route that your midwife isn't going to be full of conclusion and project at you their points of view too. So this is actually a way, regardless of what your personal choices are, to be in the space of having the questions of what is what you know, what is right for you, what is how you would like to create something different, regardless of what your actual choice, the way it shows up in this reality, whether that means hospital birth, whether that means home birth, whether that means, you want a nurse, you want a bottle feed, it means you're a spanking parent or you're a not spanking parent. What we're talking about here is actually getting out of the judgment of what those choices are and connecting with you and what actually works for you in your life and how to actually use this set of tools to find out what that is for you, find out what does work for you, because it's not going to be the same for everyone. I have personally found that what actually works for me as a mom is vastly different from what I thought was going to be the way I parented and what I thought was going to be the way I lived my life in regards to being a mom. Thank you, Cara. I'm glad I can see your pretty face now. So who wants to take it from here? Emily, you haven't really gotten a chance to be in the limelight yet. What do you have to contribute to us now?
Cool. So hi, everyone. My name is Emily Russell, and I'm a mother of 2 little girls who are 5 and 2. I've also been a volunteer doula at several births as well. And for me, like when we talk about the tools, a couple that pop into my head, one is this idea that your point of view creates your reality. So like you were saying, Sadie, everyone has their, especially when you're pregnant, everyone wants to give you their point of view of what's true for them or what they think is true or what they think is going to be great for you. And when you know that whatever your point of view creates your reality. So if you think, okay, my birth is going to be easy, one of the biggest gifts was having a doula in my ear, and I said, please, every moment of every second, just tell me, this is just easy, this is just like your body, you're just, and that was my point of view. So like Kim, I was talking and happy and joking through both of my labors. My first one was pre-Access tools, and my second one was a planned home birth, and another tool is basically what you ask for shows up. And ask questions and see what shows up, and what you ask for shows up. And we are so super aware beings of what's going to happen. And with my second birth, I had planned a home birth, and I was really functioning from judgment and didn't realize it. I had gotten to a point where my first one was natural, and so by the time my second one came around, I thought, this is how you have to do it. It has to be no medication. I'm going to, I breastfed for 2 years, and this is the right way, and if I don't feed them all organic foods, they're going to die, and and I really thought, I swear I thought I was doing
that club too.
Okay,
So.
yeah, okay. And I thought I was doing it from this really good place of this is healthy, and don't you want to do this? And then I realized, oh my God, that has nothing to do with their path. But I wasn't at this point yet. So I was had my point of view of how the birth should go. And my friends were, do you want to just maybe have a backup doctor? No, I've done this before. I'm fine. And at home, up to 10 centimeters, I'm loving and I'm at home. And I actually say to my doula, have you ever seen that episode back in the 60s and the Mad Men episode where they used to knock women totally under and medicate them and then give them their baby. And I was like, wow, wouldn't that be crazy? And I'm like, I'm so glad I'm at home in my tub. And literally an hour later, they're like, ooh, the baby's breech, and we're going to transfer you to the hospital, and we don't have time to do an epidural, so we're going to knock you out. I'm like, oh, thank you. I just totally asked for that. And like did not have the tools at the time, and then was in like postpartum depression for like 6 months, thinking I ruined my baby's life for forever because of this birth I had caused. And I finally started, and I came across a bars class, had no idea what it was. I was like, I'm going to go to that. And it was for the first time I started to be able to see the choices I was making. I was like, wow, I've totally contracted to this small thing of what has to be right. And when I started to look at that, and I saw that, oh my gosh, I don't have to function from there anymore. And I started to ask questions, these are all interesting points of view that I've taken. So that's another tool, is interesting point of view. I have that point of view. Like any thought, any belief, any choice you made is just a point of view you've taken, and other people are going to have other points of views, and there's no right or wrong. And what if we didn't have to change anyone else's mind or convince anyone? We just realize that everything we're thinking is a point of view. And it changed everything for me. It changed my relationship with my daughter. There's another crazy tool, I don't know if I introduced it, the clearing statement from Access Consciousness, that I had tried yoga, I had tried meditating for hours a day to get out of my depression, and nothing worked. And I was like, in this bars class, they say this crazy phrase called the clearing statement, which is right, wrong, good, bad, POC, POD, all nine shorts, boys, and beyonds. And you can look more about it at theclearingstatement.com, but it's these crazy words that basically take away the energy of what's sticking you. And I was stuck with that birth. And just, I would cry or be in tears or be really pissed anytime I passed a hospital. And I just like, I'll try it. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm a total pragmatist, and I'll try whatever. And I said that phrase a few times when I go by the hospital, and after 6 months of depression, it was just gone after maybe saying that 5 times. I was like, whatever this is, I'm in.
Absolutely. That's kind of how it works, though. It's like when you find that thing that works for you, you'll tell anybody about it. It doesn't matter what it is. For us, right now, obviously, because that's why we're here today, it's these tools of access that we go, wow, these were amazing. They created something greater for me than the status quo. And so I'm really interested in being the contribution that I can be to bring the awareness about how to use these tools to other people, and especially in this case, women who might be in these situations where they're getting points of view handed to them on a silver platter, and it's under the assumption that because that doctor who has more authority than them has that point of view, they need to take that point of view too. But what is possible when you actually connect with what works for you? And Emily, I wanted to ask, did you actually ask for that, or were you actually just aware that that was what was required to get that baby out? You know what I mean? So it's like, it's not necessarily that there was a wrongness, like you created it, but at the time, I'm sure you thought you created it, and I'm sure that contributed to some of the depression, but all it takes is the tools to be able to actually change that too. So it doesn't matter what you've created. It doesn't matter what it is in any area of your life. You can change it. There are tools available that actually allow you to change it, and that's what I think we're all here to try and get across, is that you could be super staunch into, I'm going to go in and I'm going to schedule my C-section, I want to go on vacation next Tuesday, I need to have this baby out, or you could be like, super granola, I'm going to have my baby at home, whatever. And that, obviously, I'm making generalizations because I was that super granola mom too, so I can speak from that place. But we're talking about how if you take a staunch point of view on anything, it actually limits your choices. It doesn't matter if you're choosing what you think is a greater choice for you. People who choose, to maybe schedule their C-section, to them, that's the optimal choice. So this is getting out of the conclusion and the judgment that there's a right or wrong to anything, and that's actually one of the other tools, and that's part of the clearing statement that you heard Emily say a second ago, was right and wrong, good and bad. It's everywhere you're making something right, everywhere you've decided it's wrong, everywhere you're trying to make it good, everywhere you're trying to make it bad. Anytime you go into those polarities, it actually sticks that thing in your universe. So that's part of the clearing statement, and that's part of the tools. Like, why, that's basically what the energy of judgment is. It's like a sticking point in your universe that you kind of bounce between, that you never actually can see what is out here beyond that little small space you've created for yourself. So who's up next? Cassie, you haven't spoken yet. You ready?
Yeah, I'd actually like to talk about kind of what Emily was bringing up and you kind of touched on, where did you create that, or were you aware of it? Because I've always been really aware of kind of like little bits of what's coming. And on my second pregnancy, so I've 2 boys, 4 and 2. The second pregnancy, I just got into Access. Like, I think I was 8 months pregnant, and I had the bars for the first time. So I just had a handful of tools. And suddenly, like, the babysitter wasn't, like, everything that I had created that I thought was this perfect, ideal birth was crumbling. And I'm like, okay, I just need to go have a shower. So I went, I shut the door. I was like, no one talk to me. And I just asked, how's it getting better than this? Because I was perceiving what was coming, but I wasn't willing to have it. I was like, I'm changing it. I'm not, you know? So I just kept going, what? And like, with really curiosity, like, a question should have curiosity, like, how does it get any better than this? How does it get any better than this? How does it get any better than this? And then suddenly it just popped, like, okay, expand. And so an expansion with Access is like, you literally take the energy that you be, and you expand it out 100,000 miles in every direction, and 100,000 miles more in every direction. And you just keep going, and you just keep going, and you just keep going until you have this space of total space. and for me, it's really calm. And then I was just like, okay, this is what I require to do. And it wasn't about controlling the labor. It was about knowing what I know and being willing to be in question and to see what's going to work and what's going to make this the greatest birth possible. And so when I ended up, it all just like came together, and it was so easy. And 5 minutes of pushing, my little guy was out, like, in the tub. It was like amazing. And the same thing with Kim. Like, they were like, oh no, she's so far away. Like, even my midwives that were at my first birth, and they were surprised then, were even more surprised this time. They're like, no, you've got at least a couple hours to go, honey. And I'm like, okay. 10 minutes later, here's my baby. So you really can change everything without conclusion, and just following the energy of it, and knowing your body, and knowing what you know, and just having even like 5 tools, like just questions to ask to change it, and to be with it, and to have ease with anything that changes.
Absolutely.
That's my blurb.
I love it. And did you guys notice, for those of you guys who are watching, I'm sure those of us here on the panel noticed, like, when she did that space out thing, did you notice that she actually was like, and it feels so nice? Because that's what gets created when you space your energy out. Like, we think we're confined to these bodies, but really we're these beings that are really massive. So when you actually touch out into the, to the edges of you, which don't actually exist, you just keep going, it creates a sense of ease. And you totally demonstrated it when you were talking, because as you started to space out and do it, you were like, yeah, like, the ease was like palpable. So, even something as simple as that, what would it be like if instead of, in labor, instead of being in your body and feeling, say, the contractions from that space of pressure and intensity in your body, what if you just expanded your energy out? And then that contraction, instead of being like, if your body is this big, the contraction's like this big, the contraction stays this big, but your being is this big, it becomes very small relative to you. So, I mean, there are practical tools that aren't just like these spacey, oh, it feels so good. It's like, these actually work. They're actually really tangible things that you can do to create something different showing up. So,
and that expand out tool, I was going to say, is so good for once you have a kid, when the temper tantrum stage, or when they're getting like stitches or have to have something that hurts in this reality, you can just say, okay, expand out. It's like, and you're saying, just like a contraction for kids, if they're expanding out, suddenly what they're upset about kind of melts away. Or if they're getting stitches, they're not as contracted around that pain. So that's a wonderful one to use when the kids are older as well. I love that one.
Bringing up the word contraction, it was funny to me, because it's like, in labor you're contracting. Like, you have contractions, and it's like the tense muscles. It was like, so I'm supposed to do this and then like push something out, and I was like, oh. And so going from that space of total expansion, it's like all the muscles do relax. Everything kind of opens up. Like, And even like if you check in with your posture, like check in with your body when you expand. And then have a kid tantrum around you and have someone like be intense around you and see what happens to your body. Like it is funny enough, it is practical to totally expand. And what if we could live from that space?
Absolutely. Kim, did you want to tell us again? We kind of were getting a little echo earlier, so.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I just wanted to follow up on a couple things that you guys have said. One is the whole staying in the question thing for people that aren't familiar with Access. Staying in the question, we ask a question, and then we don't necessarily search for the answer. So, like, how does it get any better than this is one that somebody mentioned. So we ask that question, and then we don't go looking like, how am I going to make this better? Because it leaves us open to the possibilities instead of coming to a conclusion about how something has to show up. And so, like, one of the questions I asked throughout my pregnancy was, what would it take for this to be even easier than I could imagine? And then, again, I'm not searching for answers when I ask that kind of question, or I would ask, I'm trying to think of when I was asking, what can my twins and I create together to make this birth as easy as possible? And just different questions like that. And again, staying open to the possibilities that can come. And so, yeah, I had somebody running, my doula was running my bars for like 3 hours while I was in labor. They came to check me again. They were going to take somebody else into the operating room, and her, just like Cassie said, or I think Kara said, her eyes got real big, and she was like, oh my God, she's ready now, let's get her in there. And I pushed for 15 minutes with the first one, and that was it. And you know, they were all shocked that I wanted to try and do a vaginal delivery anyway with twins. So I pushed for 15 minutes with the first one. It was total ease. And, you know, it's funny because with the preeclampsia, I had a lot of pain up until the delivery and then after the delivery. But during the delivery, it was fine. And, you know, something else, just to touch on one of the other tools that I think it was Kara that mentioned, I was in the hospital 5 days before I had the babies, and they were wheeling me down for a scan the one day, and they're wheeling me behind this other pregnant woman, and she is just bitching and moaning about being pregnant, and I don't care what they say, pregnancy is hard, and these women that say it's easy, they're just lying, and she's like going off. And one of the tools we use is, who does this belong to? Because you pick up a lot of thoughts, feelings, and emotions from other people, and a lot of times you don't even realize you're doing it. Like, have you ever been around somebody that's really angry or mad, and then all of a sudden you're in the room with them and you walk away and suddenly you're pissed off? Like, you pick up a lot of things from other people. And I realized as they're wheeling me down behind this woman, I'm starting to get like, yeah, this pregnancy thing sucks, and I can't wait till these babies come out. And meanwhile, up until that point, I'd had an amazing pregnancy. Like, it hadn't been a problem. So the Who Does This Belong To tool is something that we use, and when you realize that something doesn't belong to you, you can do what we call return to sender. And so you just say something like, return to sender with consciousness attached. And that way, I notice when I say that, it makes me feel so much better, and I realize how much stuff I'm picking up from other people. So that's another tool, especially when you're in the hospital or when you're around other people that are sick. Sometimes you might be picking up some of their energy that you don't even realize that it doesn't belong to you.
And this isn't really woo-woo stuff, you guys. Those of you who are listening that might sound weird to you. I mean, we've all had that experience of, say, walking into a room and knowing if, like, the couple at that table over there is in a fight. Not even having to look at them, you just sense that energy from them. And so it's not a stretch to actually invite you to realize that you're actually way more aware than you think you are, way more aware. And so how much have you discredited your knowing and what you actually are aware of for the sake of not wanting to be defined as something that's outside of the bounds of normality, when in reality, normality is actually a way to keep us limited from actually acknowledging and being the capacities that we have that could be creating something different here on this planet. And then, you know, in this case, potentially with your pregnancy, your birth, and then baby down the road. So, I mean, it's these tools kind of sound out there when you first hear them, but when you actually start applying them, it's like, wow, this is really easy, and gosh, that makes total sense. And so it's not weird.
The thing too, I wanted to add 2 other questions, and also, you don't actually have to know how these tools work for them to work. Like, I've been at births where I'm just like, as a doula, sometimes people come in and they have very specific points of view about what they're, like the care providers. I don't do it that way. I do it this way, and I was just like, well, what else is possible, and then they would da-da-da-da. And there was this one birth that I was at, and I must have asked that question, I don't even know how many times, probably like 10 times. I just kept saying, well, what else is possible? But I basically, through that process, got the care provider to allow this woman to deliver her baby in a way that they were not comfortable. But I put it in their universe enough of the question of oh, there is something else possible. They just kind of went with it. So it's these tools, you don't have to know how they're working for them to work. And the other question that's so awesome is what's right about this I'm not getting. That is such an amazing tool, especially with birth and pregnancy, because birth, in general, is very polarized. Very few people have no point of view about birth. I mean, even grandpas who are 78 are going to approach a woman who's pregnant and give them their point of view. It's very, very seeded with very specific points of view. So the question is such a cool way for you to pull yourself out of where everybody else is functioning from and actually start to look at what works for you, which so many people have said here on this panel. And it can create so much more than you think it can, just giving yourself that space to look at what works for you. So what's right about this I'm not getting, and what else is possible are two other really awesome questions to ask.
Yeah. And Sadie, I like that you brought up the woo-woo stuff, because I have a very technical job, and when I first heard the clearing statement, I was like, there is no way in hell I'm ever saying that in public, and I will use it and I will say it to myself, but nobody's ever going to know I'm doing this stuff.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even send people to the Access site, because I just, I had a judgment and a point of view about it. And I've had such amazing results from these tools that I don't care what people think anymore. If I can help one person by sharing them, then if it sounds woo-woo, it sounds woo-woo. But it's funny that you brought that up, because I realize now how normal they sound to me, and I don't even know what sounds unusual to people anymore.
Totally. Tim, while you're
weird now.
Yeah, you're weird now. Those of you guys who have little babies, do either of you want to share your, when I say little babies, I mean less than 6 months old. Do either of you want to share your any of the tools, the way you're applying them with little babies and what's happening,
As you see the foot in the screen.
Yeah, I know. Teresa's got.
The baby wants to talk. I think the baby would like to be part of the Google Hang.
Yeah. Are you ready, Teresa?
I'm just saying.
I'm ready now. He's nice and asleep, so.
All right.
He won't be
he's
for
contributing
long.
with his sleeping energy. Thank you. What was the question?
Well, do you want to talk about using the tools now that the baby is actually
them?
here?
Do you want to share, Teresa?
Oh, did we lose Teresa?
No, maybe we did.
Kim, how about you?
So dynamic.
Well, it's really interesting. The expanding out one I've been using with them, just telling them, I know that you're in this little tiny body, but you're this really big being, and you can expand out when they're really fussy or something. And the other thing I used kind of almost when they were in utero was I talked to them, and there's actually a half an hour between my twins. I was 6 weeks early, excuse me, and the water broke with one, and the other one didn't want to come out, and they were getting ready to use forceps and break the water and everything, and I said to them, okay, hang on 1 second. And my doula said I got real quiet, and I was talking to the second baby, and I just said, look, buddy, if you don't come out, we're going to get a bunch of nasty stuff. They wanted to give me magnesium and stuff like that. And, I was just kind of talking to him and saying, it's time to come out. And he all of a sudden started moving down. And afterwards, the doctor, who's, this surgeon, she came up to me and she said, I don't know what you did, but it worked. So it's just, I talk to them, and I'm trying to think what else I use with them. The expanding out, that works really well. And I just stay in the question with them a lot, because sometimes being a mom is hard, and you don't know what's wrong with them, especially when they're little and they're crying. And so I just, the what else is possible question, or the what's right about this I'm not getting question, because a lot of times as moms we really judge ourselves when we can't fix every problem right away, and when the baby's crying and you feel like sometimes I know a lot of moms feel like a failure when they can't fix things right away. So just staying in the question is really helpful too.
Yeah. And actually, I was going to add to that one of the other tools that we kind of hit on earlier is this idea of saying anything that comes up that sounds like any kind of a point of view, just saying interesting point of view, I have that point of view. And that can also take away that charge for you, because it's like, my husband and I were just talking about it last night, because my 2.5-year-old has gotten to that age where anytime she hears something she doesn't want to hear, she freaks out in that hysterical scream where it's like they do it on purpose with the most shrill, like nail-biting, pull every thin hair out of the back of my neck sound that they can possibly muster. But using that tool, interesting point of view, I have this point of view, because I think one of the things that kicks in when we hear our babies crying is this sense that we need to do something about it. We need to fix it. And it's this sense of like there's a wrongness that needs to be ameliorated. So it's like when that happens to you, interesting point of view, I have this point of view is a really powerful tool that allows you to realize like sometimes things, maybe they just need to cry for a few minutes. Maybe they're frustrated in those little bodies. They've got a lot going on. They're these huge beings that are trapped in kind of this like not very mobile little space. So it makes sense that maybe they would get frustrated, and to actually be the presence of space for them and allow them to have whatever is happening for them and have us go, interesting point of view, I have this need to fix it, like as if there's a wrongness about what they're going through, and allow ourselves to actually step back and be present for ourselves and be like, what if I didn't have to make this a problem at all? What if I could just be with my baby right now while they have this big tantrum or this emotional space? Like that space is that ease we're talking about with the whole theme of this whole conversation, is just being that ease and actually realizing that it is possible to have ease sometimes. I'm not saying it happens all the time. I still buy into the trauma and drama of being a mom and having 3 little ones. They drive me totally bonkers sometimes, but I've had enough times where I've actually looked at what's going on and used the tools and created the ease to know that it is actually possible. Now it's just getting out of the allure of buying into the trauma and drama. What is that actually getting us? So, but that's another actual tool, is what's right about this I'm not getting. What do I think I'm getting out of creating this trauma and drama? And then when you look at it without a point of view, without a defense for it or against it, you can go, oh, well, that's kind of silly. Maybe I'd like to change that now. So they just keep evolving. It doesn't matter how they show up. As long as you don't go into judgment of you can use these tools to actually unlock yourself from every place that you're sticking yourself and creating anything that sucks showing up in your world. So, Teresa, you got cut off there. Do you want to come back around and talk to us again? Are you there? No! Oh, such a great picture of her, though. Okay. All right, who's up next?
Well, you know what? I kind of wanted to talk a little more about that whole, I think it was Kim, you said how you were talking to your twins about creating your birth, right? Mm-hmm. And yeah. I didn't have that tool when I started, but I've also assisted some friends with births and stuff, and it was this really cool idea where it doesn't, like, what if it doesn't happen to you? Mm-hmm. What if you actually have some influence on how you create it, and what if you actually involve the baby, like, or babies, on creating it to be like just, and without defining it, without concluding what is the greatest result, but just like creating what would it take to create the greatest ease? What would it take to for this to be greater than we ever imagined possible?
Cara knows a little bit about this.
I was just going to say that, yeah.
Put you on the spot, Cara. Will you tell us some of your stories of magic that you've worked with babies? Or is that too much?
Well, I mean, I can kind of touch on it a little bit, and I love that you guys have brought it up, because it's like, I think all women have some sort of an awareness that they can communicate with their babies beyond what this reality tells them that they can. And for me, I realized that I was actually working more with beings coming to be born than I was actually I was working with the women, but also there was a huge aspect of working with the beings coming to be born. And I mean, I think the first step is just acknowledging them, and you guys have all done that so beautifully on this call, as actual beings. They're not, they do have a point of view, and they do contribute to the way births go. And like, there's been many a time where I've been at a birth and something weird has been going on in the space, and I'll connect to the being, and the being actually has some sort of point of view. And when I can help, like, facilitate it, or like whatever has occurred. Like I've actually used some of the access body processes I've used with the beings coming to be born, or I've just communicated with them, look, your body is not in the best position to be born, so if you moved it, it would help, you know, and then they do. It's like they are totally there to be part of the process, and I think the more as a mom you're willing to acknowledge them, and not just acknowledge them in a way of like, you're my baby, but like, hey, what do you got here? Like, help, you know, like assist, like contribute to me. And like, especially with pregnancy, is like I really realized, you know, it's like how willing are women to lower their barriers and allow the being that is coming to be part of their family contribute to them? Or is the point of view that you're a mom and you're pregnant and everything you be has to go to the child? Like, how much are women willing to receive from the beings? Like, and if you were willing to receive from the being even before you conceive, what else is possible, right? Because they're always there. I'm getting goosies. Anyway.
It's a whole, I love it. That's like a whole new, that's a whole nother Google Hangout.
It's a whole other Google Hangout. But it's awesome because it does create ease. And then it also creates this sense of a knowingness between you two that starts before you actually conceive and goes all the way through when they're in their bodies. And I think, like, my awareness is that it would cultivate a space for women to interact with these beings differently and from a different space, which a lot of you are already kind of naturally doing it, so it's super cool to see. Like I said, the tools work, you don't even have to know how they're working.
But it's like you said, Kara, because I did that when I was going in for sonograms, and one of them would be in the wrong position, and I just asked them to, like, lift your head. Okay, they need you to turn your head to the right a little bit, and they would do it. And then they'd turn their head right back after they were done with it. And it, I mean, it sounds completely freaky, and maybe it was coincidence, I don't know, but every time I would talk to them, they would actually do what I was asking.
Yeah, well, and I think so many women know that they have that ability, and how much do women like think they're making it up or call it a coincidence or whatever it is that we do to minimize what we can actually be with these beings coming to be part of our families. Right. You know, that if women just said, screw it, yeah, I'm talking to my kid, like, why not? You know, like if women started to own that, like what would actually change?
Totally. Yeah. And I remember like having my little one and thinking, I must sound crazy, or thinking like they can't possibly understand this. They're an infant, how could they understand? And I know for me, like after having had my second one not go the way I would have liked, and now with, you know, she's 2, but having like said to her, hey, like, I'm sorry I made myself wrong for that, and I made you wrong, and I made that situation wrong because it's not, and now I get it, and like, I'm sorry it took me a while, I'm not as quick as you know, and it's like, that shifted everything in our relationship. I didn't even realize that had been hanging around, because I was like, oh, I'm over it, I'm cool, but it really wasn't until I talked with her and said, you know, everything that was, like, we don't have to hang on to that anymore. That charge, all of that, there's no wrongness in it, it's okay. And it, like, totally shifted our whole relationship. And these tools are just, no matter what happens, if you can't create what you want, or the birth doesn't turn out, or you think you're being a bad mom. I mean, I was like, I'm totally a recovering perfectionist. I'm like, I need to get it right. And it's like, wow, such different possibilities open up when you're like, okay, but what works for me in this 10 seconds? And it might not work in the next 10 seconds, and I don't have to judge myself for doing something different or not getting it right once. Not going to, you know, kill them if I feed them sugar for the day.
Well, and like in addition to what's right about this I'm not getting, you can also say what's right about me I'm not getting, which I think probably would be quite a lifeline for most moms.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to add to this conversation is, I mean, there's adages about how mother's intuition, and those have been around forever. I mean, our grandmothers said that kind of thing. Their grandmothers, I mean, forever and ever. So what if this isn't this new wacko thing that we're talking about? It might sound weird to hear Kara talk about asking the baby to turn, but what if you didn't have to just use mother's intuition when something went wrong? You know, like, okay, I know my kid's in trouble. We'll let ourselves have the mother's intuition then. What if you could actually have it all the time? Have that connection with them that's beyond words and beyond body language and beyond all of that. What if you could connect to them when they're in the other room, when they're in college, where they're else, and actually have that connection with them? What if that's actually what was meant by the whole phrase mother's intuition? And what if you didn't have to only let yourself have it when you're escaping tragedy? What if you could actually have it be a benefit to you and your child and the whole relationship as it evolves? So, Teresa, are you finally able to?
I don't know. I can hear you. Can you guys hear me?
You can.
Okay, great. I just had to be kicked off, and now I'm back on. Great. Oh, sorry. To go on, the mother's intuition was one of the biggest tools. Have we talked about light and heavy at all?
Please do.
Please. Okay. The light and heavy is. How do you ever explain that? If you ask a question. So I'm just going to go by example. So for baby, he's 4 months old. He's my third boy, which there are a lot of points of view about having boys, so many points of view. So the points of view don't end after you have baby. They just keep going. No matter what you have, no matter what gender and how many you have, it's always a lot of work to everyone. And one of the biggest tools that I use with him and the other boys, but more so with him because he doesn't have verbal words yet, is the light and heavy tools. So I will actually go and ask him, would you like to go on your swing or would you like to go lay on the floor? And
oh, he's so cute.
See, I told you he wants to be part of the. Put him in the screen. Unless you don't want to, but he's like,
oh, no.
I still want to be part. Totally.
Where is he? There we go.
Oh my gosh, I want to eat those cheeks.
Hi. No, he's just looking. So I'll actually ask, would you like to go on your swing? And I'll get a sense of the energy. And if it's light, if it's a light feeling, then I put him in the swing, and he couldn't be happier. If it's heavy and it's it usually if the energy comes up and it's a heavy energy, then it tends to be a lie, or it tends to be not something he would like to do. So if I put him in the swing anyways and it's heavy, he tends to have a little bit of a fit within the first 30 seconds of being there.
Yeah, because he's like, why would you ask and then not do what I said?
Exactly. We don't actually do that very often, but it's amazing being able to communicate with him, even though he doesn't have the words to communicate. It's to be able to communicate on a totally different
He's
level.
horrible in communication.
Yeah, terrible.
He's like smiling and flirting.
He communicates with me better than the 7 and the 4-year-old do with
I don't doubt
actual
it.
words. Yeah. And even from when he was born, he's quicker. I found Access, was introduced to Access before he was born, probably at least a year before, year and a half, 2 years maybe. And he is a totally different child than my first two. And I mean, kids are all different, but this is the pregnancy was different. It was easier. He's been smiling since he was 2 weeks old. The birth was way quicker. Like I had 3 pushes and he was out. He was 1.5 pounds smaller than the other boys. They were just about 10 pounds. So I like to look at what it was like before Access and what it was like with Access, and it's really cool how the tools can make such a difference.
Hey Teresa, could you talk about what shifted with your awareness when you were pregnant?
Yeah, actually, thank you.
Remember?
Thank you. When I'm trying to go back and remember what it was like. So before I was pregnant, I was aware. We're all aware. Some of us choose to not be aware. When I became pregnant, it was like amplified by 1,000 times. Like all of a sudden, I was picking up on things, and I was the who does it belong to? Did we talk about? Did anybody mention that?
Yeah, we've talked about it a bit.
Okay, so I used it before I was pregnant, and then after, when becoming pregnant, it was like everything and anything was just, I thought it was mine. It was there were things I was picking up on. And Cassie, I don't remember if you have any of the examples from the beginning of my pregnancy.
Even like nausea, like who does this belong to? It was like, oh, not mine.
Not mine, and all of a sudden the morning sickness was gone, or I was really tired and really cranky. Well, who does that belong to? Oh, it's not mine. Great, so I can actually go on being happy. It was a really great tool.
It was kind of neat because I've actually noticed that with other friends of mine too. And I don't really know exactly what it is, but I have noticed their awareness exponentializes in a certain way while being pregnant, and even the little bit after. And yeah, so those tools were like, have helped people significantly, because it's when you're that aware of everything, things can seem way more intense. Like,
yeah.
You're being nauseous for like 15 people rather than just yourself.
Yeah, rather than being aware of just the people on your block, it's like all of a sudden you're aware of everyone in the whole city. Like that, the awareness grew so much, and also being able to, like you as ladies had talked about, communicating with him, and the really interesting thing was. The asking about whether he, we all want to know if we're having a boy or a girl, and I would always ask if he was, are you a boy or a girl body? And he always came up as a girl body. Right until he was born, I was still convinced he was a girl. Even after 3 ultrasounds confirmed that he was a boy, there was still a very feminine, female energy. And I get, even now, it's just, he's just his softness. It's not boy or girl. It's just his energy, and he's just a soft, sweet little boy.
You can't tell it all.
And I just want to say, this Google Hangout for him, just so we're all clear.
Yeah.
And like she was saying, or like when Cassie was saying, like when we're pregnant, we're like kind of exponentially aware, and so are our kids. Mm-hmm. And so like the tools, like the who does this belong to, we've mentioned that a lot. And with my 2-year-old, she's super aware, and she'll been waking up in the morning and being like, I'm tired, my stomach hurts, and I'm like, who does that belong to? And then she'll just laugh. It's gone. She doesn't even know. I'm just like, who does that belong to? And then she starts laughing and it's gone. But like to realize that they're picking up, I think what often in this reality looks like problems with kids, when they get fussy, when they get temper, whatever that looks like, often it's their awareness of what they're, and when I know for me as a parent to see that and be like, oh, okay, it's not something I have to control. It's not something that I need to make them wrong for, make myself wrong for not doing a good job. It's like they're just super aware. And I don't know if you guys, but one of my favorite books is Would You Teach a Fish to Climb a Tree? By Ann Maxwell, and it's on Amazon too. It's on the Access site. And Gary Douglas and Dane here are contributors to it. They're all 3, and it's honestly, if you are a parent, if you work with kids, if you've ever been a kid, it is the one book that I was just like, wow, these tools. It goes over a lot of the tools we're talking about and more, and I feel like it's a really great resource for parents and anyone around kids.
Yeah, and one thing about that book, I know when somebody suggested it to me, I think it's the title or the cover or something, it says something about kids with ADHD or something like that, and I said, well, my son doesn't have that.
Right.
So,
yeah.
And it's good for any kid. I mean, don't let that, make you not, because it's.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, right? It's for any kid. It says that, but it's for any kid.
You don't have to be a kid anymore to have it benefit you. It actually explained a lot of stuff for me that I had made myself wrong for when I was a kid that I still thought was wrong about me as an adult. And looking back, reading this book, Would You Teach a Fish to Climb a Tree, I was really aware of, oh, that was me. That was what I did. That was how I was. And this is how it was dealt with. So, oh, that explains this whole thing that I've been making this huge wrongness about me this whole time. So I would never read that book if I were you. It probably won't change anything in your world.
Don't do it.
Yeah. So we're winding down the hour here, you guys. Do you guys, anybody have any summing up words to kind of put out there to the groups who might be watching this down the road or even right now as we're live, that things you'd like to say as we kind of wrap up? Anybody?
I would just say, you know, again, and this, we've kind of talked about this, but there is so much judgment out there about pregnancy and what you should do and shouldn't do and points of view and things like that. And really, it can be easier than you've ever imagined. You don't have to buy into the pain and the suffering and, oh, everything will be okay once the baby's out. Like, there's really a way to enjoy the pregnancy. And I know for some of you that may be new to this, like, we've kind of thrown a ton of stuff at you in an hour, and your head might be spinning and you might be going, what did they just talk about? So, you know, I'd really encourage people to look into Access a little further if any of these have piqued your interest, or try and find somebody to run your bars or bars class in your area, because I know for me it's changed my life, and I run them on my kids, and it really, really helps just create a whole nother level of ease that I never knew was possible.
Thank you, Pam. That's so true. Emily,
And
did you want
not
to
go
say?
into the wrongness
Yeah.
of yourself. If through pregnancy, birth, after babies, if it doesn't go the way everyone else does it, what the norm is, it just, don't go into the wrongness. Just the interesting point of view, they have that point of view, and do what works for you.
Yeah. I wanted to say one thing that I was noticing, perceiving the energy of the people out there who may be watching this now or in the future, and I perceived this defense against for the rightness of the wrongness of what's going on. Like, why it is that hard. You don't know. I have a huge baby in here. I can't do it, or I have this sciatic pain, or I have this, whatever it is. And that's actually an invitation to just be aware of where you're not willing to choose something different, and that's not a wrongness either. But if you make yourself aware of where you're defending that it's better to keep that as your point of view than to actually ask the question, what else is possible when what you think sucks shows up? Is it more vital to you to have the sympathy for what sucks, or to have ease? And that's just an invitation to look at when you're ready to change that, there are other options. And it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the way it is now. But notice, it's not to say that the tools don't work. If you're defending the rightness of the wrongness of your situation, then the tools aren't going to do anything for you. So I just want to throw that out there, because all of us do that at some point. If we were to just accept the ease and just choose ease right away, how much would we feel like that would invalidate everything we've been through? Right? Wouldn't that kind of make us feel like there was some, it was a useless life that we'd lead or something like that? So just know that if that's coming up for you, that's totally normal. We all do that because we all want to prove the rightness or the validity of our point of view and why it is that hard. Well, what if it could be different?
It's gotta be tough to be of value.
Yeah. Do you actually want it to change? And if you do want it to change, then there are other options. So that's what this is really about. We're here for those of you who actually are ready to choose something different and would like to choose something different. And we're not here to convince anybody who wants to stay stuck in that place of it does suck. So anybody else?
I would just love to say, of all the things like that anyone said tonight, what I loved about all of these, like getting so many tools, was like pick whatever one feels light. That idea of if there's one thing, like one question, like who does this belong to, or how could this birth be easier than I can imagine, just go with it. Whatever, if one thing sounds awesome, take that one thing, because that can truly change a lot. And go with what feels light.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing for me was that just know that you do know something. Like, no matter what the doctors in the middle, whatever everyone tells you, like, what if you do know something? What if you do know your body? What if you do know your baby? What if you actually know?
Yeah.
And end with all of life comes to me with ease, joy, and glory. That's a good one. Or all of pregnancy and all of motherhood comes to me with ease, joy, and glory. And I swear, you say that, put it on a sticky note, and just see what changes. I don't know.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so if nobody else has anything to say, we'll go ahead and wind down the hour. Thank you guys for joining me and each other here tonight, taking time out of your busy lives. And I can't believe none of us had some screaming child run into the room. I mean, we got pretty lucky. I was totally expecting it to happen because I thought maybe that'll be a good demonstration of how to be ease with the chaos, but it didn't happen. That's right. I'm grateful for it. But thank you guys so much for coming and taking time out of your busy lives to join all of us together. And we'll look forward to probably doing another one in the future. And you guys, those of you who are watching, you can actually catch the replay of the one we did back on October 30th. That's also on YouTube, and this one will be posted right after we're finished here, and you can check it out. And then, you know, post comments, give us feedback, connect with us, any of us on Facebook if you want to have more information. All of us are some kind of practitioner that if you want bar sessions or other kinds of follow-up after this, if you are ready to learn more about the tools or just want to have more tools in your box, we can also help you with that. And so you can find any of us on Facebook, on YouTube, follow up if that helps you at all. We just want to be the contribution to you that these tools have been to us. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.